15-year-old Kevin Bowen loved this day. And I think you probably had moments in your life, Andy, where you loved this day as well.
Really? December 4th? Please tell. Boy, I sound bad. Wow.
Now, December 4th, not necessarily. It used to be more like February 4th, but it was always a Wednesday.
Okay.
And I always used to be like, I cannot wait to get home from school. It was probably more of a hard copy of my blue and gold illustrated back then, but I certainly, thanks to Ryan Bowen and his 5.5 years older than me, we were still, scowling the message boards back then. National Signing Day.
National Signing Day, baby. That's a great point. We won't even talk about it much today.
I mean, I
but
used
back
to
in
be
the day,
obsessed with it.
Dude, you're spot on. You're spot on. The fax machines.
All of it.
It's fantastic. A late flip.
Manti Te'o and the time difference from the Hawaiian Islands. Are we going to get the fax in? All that. Oh.
Well, if you flip someone, you call it, was it flip miss? Isn't that what they call it now?
Yeah,
if you flip someone at the last second?
I believe so, but it has certainly lost its luster here with the transfer portal and everything. And now they bump it up, of course, to obviously today. So,
yeah. Hey, Purdue doesn't have a coach, so,
I saw Purdue, their quarterback is still signing with them. I'm like, they should build a it should be like,
they really should.
Matt Painter's statue should go next to this guy's statue for him sticking with the class. A lot to get to here on this Wednesday morning. It's kind of a bye-week tradition for us. We'll talk a little NFL draft. Dane Brugler from The Athletic going to join us coming up at 8:30. I am dead serious with this comment. He has a Purdue football player going in round 1 of his NFL mock draft.
Oh, that's a surprise. That rarely ever happens.
I was like, am I getting punked here on National Signing Day? So we'll chat with Dane Brugler coming up at 8:30. Pat Forty at 9 o'clock. The Indiana Hoosiers, I think it's fair to say, they are in, and they are a lock to make the playoffs.
Hey, listen, you're looking at me. I'm looking
Right?
at you. That's the number one takeaway last night, obviously, locally. I know nationally everyone's wanting to cry about Miami, and they're wanting to cry about, what's going to happen with the ACC and Alabama if they make it and everything else. I did love last night. Ward Manuel was honest, maybe for the first time ever, and now he's being crushed for it. But, I'm looking at it, and, they go to Heather Dinich on the show, and she kind of tells you, hey, what could happen this weekend? And if Boise State were to lose, and if Clemson were to steal a bid, Indiana would still be in the college football playoff. And I kind of feel at some point, KB, and we can talk about this more as we go, at some point, aren't a group of people going to complain about Indiana? Like, even more so, like, paying attention that Indiana is going to make it. And, some of these teams aren't going to make it. But that's the takeaway from last night, is that your Indiana Hoosiers somehow, someway, I can't believe we're actually to this point. They are in the college football playoff. It's unbelievable.
And again, there's little debate. I get where you're coming from. Like, I think we are going to get, some people that.
Oh, sure. I can't believe it.
Yeah, there's part of me that watched last night's show and walked away from it thinking, I feel like Miami should have a better case than the committee's acknowledging them for.
Yeah, I think that's a popular thought.
And that might be like me in the ESPN morning meeting that Joey Galloway was in several weeks ago. That's like, hey, man, we have nothing hot takey. Can you please give us something tonight to save us from an entertainment standpoint? But, if you start to look at the Miami resume against Alabama, against Indiana, I think you could make a little bit of a stronger case. But, again, part of me is like, Kevin, you're just trying to drum up something that really has little substance on that end. Now, you look at the pathways for Indiana and Notre Dame from last night. They'll probably make you, cause some sleepless nights here over the next week and a half. So we will get to that, or I should say 2 weeks and a half before we get those round 1 games going. We'll get to that. Some news from the Purdue front I definitely want to hit on today, as we have reached kind of the midway point here in the week with Ryan Walters and that search. Looks like we've got a new head coach in Muncie, a man that has been on these airwaves here in the last couple of months. We'll hit on that for Ball State football. And last night, north of the border, the Indiana Pacers were down. What was the biggest? Was it 24, 26?
Yeah, it was something like that. I'll look it up, but it was in the mid-20s.
They were getting their ass kicked. Turnovers galore. I thought the worst game of the season for Pascal Siakam. I thought Jarris Walker was a total no-show. And on a night when you play wings like R.J. Barrett and Scotty Barnes, you need that. Again, turnover after turnover. Andrew Nemhard looked like a man that had missed several weeks and not like the guy we saw on Sunday. Outside of Tyrese Halliburton finally looking like a all-star level player away from home, it was a lot of ugly. And yes, it was a spirited comeback. I don't know if I can celebrate that too much here on this Wednesday morning.
I'm not going to do that. I don't know. It was probably mid-third quarter or so. I tweeted out, this is a weak performance. And then, of course, as soon as I hit send, the Pacers came back. It's a 2-point game. You have a couple shots in the air to actually go take the lead.
You could have been the difference.
Listen, maybe I was the difference. I'm sure I have that power. I'm worried about this basketball team. I've been saying it for the last couple weeks. There is not a lot of feel good around this team. And you saw the face of Rick Carlisle last night calling timeouts. You saw him be frustrated. The team, KB, it is in their head, the physical play. There is no doubt about it. It is in the head of Carlisle. It's in the head of the players. You saw Matherin last night complaining, Siakam complaining, Halliburton complaining. We don't have to like it, but it's the way it is right now in the NBA. Teams are playing the Pacers physically. I mean, listen, it's a physical style of basketball, and they're losing out. I'm worried about this team, and I thought it was interesting after the game. Halliburton is questioning energy. He's questioning effort. Those are things you do not want to be questioning. And he's admitting that, hey, right now we're a 9-13 team, and people think, and I'm paraphrasing, that you win a couple games in a row, you get back to 500, and you work yourself out of this. It's not that easy. I mean, they're losing not to good teams. They're losing to bad teams. And now the back-to-back, obviously, with the Nets tonight. But there's no way you can be a Pacer fan and wake up this morning and not be worried about what's happening.
I can't believe they're favored tonight.
Yeah, I know. It's the first thing I looked at this morning.
There was a sequence last night. Jeremiah Johnson did a sideline report and mentioned that Halliburton, I think, had spoken up in the huddle and said, all right, let's make them take the next time out. I think they were down 15 or 16 at that point. Carlisle, and how he is. I mean, he takes timeouts like, I make trips to the bathroom once I've had one beer. So all of a sudden, the Pacers go back out on the floor. I swear Carlisle took a timeout 2 minutes later.
Yeah, he did.
And then he took another one 90 seconds after that.
Yeah, he did.
I'm like, that could not have been more disastrous from what they had planned exiting that huddle. They won 3 in a row last week. And when they won those 3 games, Andy, I walked away from each of those, and I kind of got the same vibe I have with the Colts having won 2 games in the last month and a half. I mean, the Colts beat the Patriots and the Jets. And if we didn't have the Anthony Richardson fourth quarter heroics to celebrate.
Yeah. Season's over.
But it's been like scratch and claw to beat 2 teams that Dane Brugler has in his top 5 of his mock draft.
Sure.
I mean, that's what it's so like the Pacers won 3 in a row, and that was huge for them and needed. But it's like still, you felt like they barely beat bad basketball teams on their home floor last week. So it's like, I don't know if, like, that's a little fool's gold, I guess is what I'm saying from last week. And sure enough, what's happened since? They've lost 3 in a row.
Well, think of what they had to do to beat Portland. I mean, you had to have literally Siakam, Halliburton, and Benedict Mathurin.
Portland was missing
fantastic games
and
to
Portland
win.
was missing
they
several
won
guys.
By 7.
So it is, again, such a critical juncture to this season because if you look at the schedule, I would say the rest of December, really starting next week, gets very difficult. And then you're going to start to get into January, and that's when you've got to have some internal discussions organizationally if this is not turned around. I mean, we are about 2 months away from the trade deadline, if you want to look at it from that standpoint, and it's getting late early for this basketball team. Now, 9-13 is not, I mean, you're 10th, I think, right now in the East. You were 7th last year. Like, when you break it down like that, it's not the end of the world. But still, you bring up the physicality point and the mental aspect to it. I think that's a good way to describe it. And when are you going to be able to, A, become a more physical team,
right,
or B, match the physicality or embrace the physicality?
Or move past it, yeah.
Yeah, because that just seems like such a struggle for this team now 22 games into the season. Again, if you want to have positive from last night, it was Halliburton looked like we haven't seen him look on the road this season. But still, I mean, they haven't won a road game in a month. They're 2-10 on the road this season. I thought Siakam and Walker were very, very bad. I thought Nembhard again was poor. and it's a back-to-back tonight in Brooklyn.
You want to feel like
you're a mess.
You want to feel like you're 17 years old again, Kevin?
Oh gosh,
the Irish have
Boy,
gotten to commit.
Thing. Oh, did they?
Mark Zachary of Ben Davis.
Well, there you go.
Well, we knew
there
that.
you go.
Aren't you excited though?
Hey, listen,
it's official.
You never know. You
he
never
didn't
know.
do the switcheroo.
Yeah, you never know until the facts is
I'm not
yeah.
going to question the integrity of a Ben Davis Giant. I've heard nothing but great things about. Frankly, Notre Dame basketball needs Mark Zachary to be their point guard right now.
Okay, what happened? I didn't even check the Notre Dame score. How did I not? How bad was that?
We're up 6-0, lost by 20.
Well, you know what? I looked. It was 6-2 was the final time I looked at that game.
That was where you probably should have taken a picture. The best Georgia start in 19 years. That's about my only saving grace.
Mike White, can't make fun of him. What did you make of IU basketball last night? Just quickly before we take our first break here. I thought it was funny. Everyone after the game's like, yeah, we didn't play two bigs and everything just kind of opened up for our guards. And I'm thinking, Mike Woodson.
Revolutionary.
How I love you, Mike Woodson. God bless you.
Yeah, I think I said to you yesterday, one big needs to be more of the dominant lineup, if you will. Luke Goody finally hitting some threes.
Yeah,
that has been an issue for the first, 8 games this season. I think that is critical. And, you could make the case it's one of the better 40-minute stretches of the season. Obviously, had the lull there to start the second half, but they pull away from Sam Houston State after that. So, it's needed because the resume is just so just blah.
It's so blah. No, you got to beat these bad teams. You got to beat them by a bunch of points.
Right.
That's exactly what they did.
By a lot. Ball State hires Butler head coach Mike Uremovich. Remember we had Coach U on.
I remember Coach U.
Back a month or two ago. This has got ramifications on several levels.
Sure it does.
There was some rumor that Brian Haynes, the defensive coordinator from Indiana who played at Ball State, was a candidate here. So it looks like Kurt Cignetti's staff is being retained at least early on that end. Now, again, we know the assistant coach pool has increased there in Bloomington. So, who knows if that played a factor into that. But, yeah, a little background on Coach U. Again, he was at Northern Illinois, some of those staffs. He's done a very nice job at Butler. Remember when he was on with us, he talked about how part of the appeal with Butler has been they've been able to get some Ivy League transfers as kind of the fifth-year cycle to come over there and play at Butler. A little bit of a different wrinkle transfer portal-wise. So with Mike New fired a couple weeks ago, they go down to the Butler Bowl, and Mike Uremovich, a 5-year deal to become the head coach of the Ball State Cardinals.
That's quite a raise for Coach U. It's a pretty good raise, I would imagine, right?
Yeah.
Pretty good raise for Coach U.
I would assume, yeah. I mean, financials, from a FCS standpoint to Muncie, who knows on that end. And again, Ryan Walters, there was an interesting comment he made. He did an exclusive with Tom Dienhart from Golden Black that was posted up on their site yesterday. I thought he had an interesting comment in regards to Purdue. It was a Major League Baseball reference that I don't think Purdue fans will feel very warm and fuzzy about once they hear it. Some might look at it as sour grapes of Ryan Walters on the way out. Some might look at it as the harsh reality of where Purdue football is within the Big Ten. And how much has changed since Ryan Walters has been hired? Because, again, Ryan Walters was hired, 2 years ago right now? A lot has changed in college football since then.
Yeah, and Purdue has been late to the game. I've talked specifically about NIL. I thought, and I said this in a passing comment yesterday, and now it's a little bit maybe more confirmed with some of the Walters stuff. This just also, besides losing football, this was not a good marriage, right? It just wasn't a good marriage between Purdue and Ryan Walters, and you saw that, and that's one reason why he got the 2 years, and that's all he got. Now he's going to get $9+ million on the way out, but it wasn't good on the field, and I don't think it was too likely to be very good off the field as well.
I think to summarize last night in the college football rankings, again, from a local standpoint, I'd say this. Indiana probably, first off, they're in. No debating that. I don't think they can host. I don't think there's a pathway for them to host.
Oh, they're not going to host.
So, at Georgia is what the current bracket has. Now, again, is Georgia going to move a little bit here based off what is going to happen in the SEC championship game? Who knows?
They could.
One way or the other there. So I would say that probably summarizes kind of Indiana's thoughts. And then with Notre Dame, I still think they have a case to be above Penn State. Now, of course, Penn State is 60 minutes away from being the number 1 overall seed in this whole damn thing.
Yeah, well, at least the number 2, yeah.
I mean, if they win, if they beat Oregon, I guess maybe Texas, if they win the SEC title game, could be the number 1 seed. But, could Notre Dame jump Penn State? Because if you look at it right now, the path as the 5 seed versus the path as the 6 seed, very different, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just loved you last night, and we'll go to break with this. Reese Davis pinning Ward Manuel down on, the Alabama and Miami and those teams, are they set? And he had to ask it 3 different times, but he got the answer.
Ward was candid eventually.
And yes, and we got the answer that Alabama is in this field right now, that we know the field unless Boise loses and if Clemson can beat SMU. This is the field. This is your college football playoff.
Yeah, Clemson is probably the bid stealer as we sit here on this Wednesday morning.
1,000%.
If they beat SMU,
they're in.
The question then becomes, Clemson's the automatic berth as the ACC champion. The question then becomes SMU or Alabama.
Yeah, please. Yeah. I wonder, KB, come on. Who are they going to take, SMU or Alabama? Yeah.
And this is where
we'll find out.
I've said this now for several weeks.
It's an easy one.
SMU would get punished for being in the conference championship game, whereas Alabama didn't make their conference championship game, so they have no punishment.
I mean, that's what you
SMU.
That's what you think is going to happen, right?
What's to lose?
If SMU loses, you think they're going to put 2 ACC teams
bone
and leave
me,
Alabama out?
Every cynical bone in me says
1,000%.
Alabama would get in over SMU. There's like a little bit of me that's like, that's everyone's thought, and does the committee think that?
Yeah,
and
do they pivot the other way?
And they say, you know what? Everyone thinks we're going to zig.
To hell with all you guys.
Zag.
Okay.
And let's get the Mustangs of SMU in this field.
If SMU makes it over Alabama, we'll have to all shave our heads. That's how surprised I'll be. We'll have to make an on-air bet or something like
Kevin
that.
just got a fresh head of hair.
That's a great point.
We'll
go back and we go hair in.
All right, so fun day today. Pat Forty going to join us coming up in the 9 o'clock hour. Dane Brugler, we'll talk some NFL draft with him in the 9 o'clock. Coming up on the other side, your morning check down. Tyrese Halliburton, what did he say yesterday? Some interesting comments after the Pacers lost, plus your news and scores from overnight. Appreciate you waking up with us here on this Wednesday. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.